we are going to be talking about inclusivity today. We have three founding members in this conversation. We have here MJ, which he calls himself as the first Black wine auctioneer and host of the Black Wine Guy Experience podcast. But I would love if maybe we could start all of us introducing ourselves. So if you would like to make a short introduction about you, MJ, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Thank you, Valentina. I just, for a point of clarification, Valentina, I love Valentina. I don't call myself the first Black wine. I was the first ever Black person to participate as an auctioneer in a fine and rare auction back in 2000. I call myself the Black wine guy. I'm pretty straightforward with things. Although probably technically I'm not Black, but you know what I mean. But anyway, I love wine. I love sharing wine stories with people, and particularly I love the stories behind the wine and the stories behind the people who create wine. And I've been very blessed and fortunate enough to drink some of the finest wines in the world. And that's what I really like about Club de Vin, is that we're really finding a way to memorialize and to share and create a community of people who love and want to enjoy these types of wine experiences together. So right now I live down at the Jersey Shore, just outside of New York City. And like I said, I have a podcast. It'll be 2 years old come October, and we'll have 100 episodes by the end of the year. And, you know, just excited to be here with these incredible people that are on the webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have also Jane Anson, which she's a wine writer and one of the best communicators in the world, specialized in Bordeaux right now. But I would love for you to do your own introduction, of course.
Thanks so much, Valentina. I am also just really thrilled to be doing this with MJ and with you, Valentina. I live in Bordeaux. It's boiling hot here today, 38 degrees, going to be 40 tomorrow. Lots of other things to talk about global warming. We can do a different session about that, but it's crazy hot. I am an author primarily. I have written a couple of books about Bordeaux, some about the wineries and some about the stories. The thing that always gets me the most excited, similarly, is the stories behind it. And I particularly wanted to be part of this webinar because Bordeaux in so many ways is so far behind in this idea of diversity, and I am trying in a tiny way to push the conversation forward a little bit. So I'm just really thrilled to be part of it today.
Awesome. And it's very lovely to have you both. I'm going to make a very short introductions for the one that do not know me. So I'm Valentina Littman. I started my professional life as a chef, which later opened me the horizon into the world of wine. I worked in the fine dining industry as the head sommelier of Martin Berazategui, a 3-Michelin star in this country, and also in Palacio Duo in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm originally from Argentina. I achieved my WEB3 diploma just last year, and also certified level of the Product Master Sommelier in the UK, both of them, and won the award of Best Sommelier of the Basque Country in 2018. And well, right now I'm fulfilling one of my dreams, which was learning the art of winemaking. So I'm working also in Recaredo Winery in San Salvador Noya, and one of the founding members of Club de Vin. That's why we are the three of us together. And focusing on Club de Vin, just to make a very short introduction. For the people that are here, and maybe some of you are potential members that you want to know a little bit more about our club and why we're here. Just a short summary is that we focus on creating high-end wine and gastronomy experience for you, for our members, and providing access to unrivaled offers on investment grade wines sourced directly from top producers or pristine cellars like Robert Parker's collection, for example. And we use blockchain technology as an enabler, but you don't need to be at all tech savvy to enjoy the full benefits of membership. So, well, after all, first and foremost, we are a wine club that offers 3 NFTs, but I think that we could talk, if you want to learn more about these tokens, be sure to check out our website and YouTube channels where you'll find specific content, full webinars, etc. about them. But I want to specifically jump into our topics today, because if we start talking about all of the details of the club, maybe we're gonna move the focus of it. So, but please, you can find a lot more of information about it there. So, getting into our topic, we know that the wine world knows that it can only survive, we believe, if it becomes more inclusive. So, but it's been a struggle to reach new people, and blockchain, we feel that, I mean, it has been called as the greater equalizer, because it lets anybody from anywhere to join in. So it already transformed the art world, and we believe that wine is next. So I was thinking yesterday, like, the wine industry pledges to improve diversity, equality, and inclusivity, but do you think that has anything really changed in the last years, Jane or MJ?
MJ, would you want to take that first?
I mean, okay, objectively, no. I mean, and that just comes from, and that's not just wine. See, it's bigger than wine. You know, previously in my day job, I worked in education, particularly working with children in inner city. And the New York Times put out an article maybe last year, either 2020 or 21. And so the wealth gap, the inequality between Black and white wealth has actually increased, despite we've had things like more children of color graduating from college. So there's some deeper issues, and I hope we're not going to solve it today, but I think if you look at wine is just a microcosm of the world. And so so we have to begin looking at larger societal issues. But what has happened, you know, even for me, in the wake of George Floyd, I went from like 1,500 followers to 7,000 followers, right? Because everybody got woke. And diversity and inclusion, we can't let those just become buzzwords, because they're you know, I think if you look at stats, things have not changed. Like, and we're talking bigger issues like wealth gaps. So like, we have to really start looking at what it's going to take to make it more inclusive. I'll just start there. I'd love to hear your perspective as a woman, Jane. I mean, because it's also not inclusive of women.
I was gonna say the same thing, that it's very easy to say, oh, blockchain is a solution, but it's not a solution yet, because blockchain is still just as inclusive, just as exclusive in many ways. And I think one of the things that you guys are doing well, but it needs to be done better, is this idea that because we're saying blockchain, NFT, it can be another barrier to entry of people being scared of thinking, oh, well, then I need to know a lot about tech to get involved. And actually, I think there's a really big learning to be done around the fact that it's just, as you said, it's a wine club. It's a way to feel inclusive, or a way to access things. It's not about a need to have a specific knowledge before you do so. So I think the worry can be, it's so easy to say, because once you have a bit of knowledge, you understand that anyone can access blockchain. But if you don't have that knowledge, you're already at a disadvantage, and you already think, oh no, that's not for me.
That's a great point, Jane. Because like you said, I mean, I think people get intimidated by wine because they think you have to be able to blind taste and know all the aromas, and why can't you just enjoy an experience? But then, so you throw technology on top of that, and it can seem more daunting. So that's a very good point.
Yes, indeed. I think that it's our main job to communicate that. And talking about the wine industry today, do you feel it's getting a little bit more inclusive?
So if I take this for specific to answer your question before, MJ, about being a woman here, I moved to Bordeaux like 18 years ago, and there has unquestionably been a big change in terms of women in key positions over that last 18 years. It's still tiny. I brought just a couple of figures for you. In Napa, this is a study done by Santa Clara University. In 2011, just under 10% of women were in lead winemaker positions within Napa, and by 2020 that had got to 14%. Sorry, that's across California, had got to 14%. Here in Bordeaux, you're probably looking at about 10% today of women in lead winemaker positions. That is seen as this huge advance, because when I moved here, that was probably 1%, less than 1%. So you can really see a difference, but there's a long, long way to go. But I would say that there is a recognition of the need to go further. One of the issues for Bordeaux is this is a place where, and all wine regions in many, many ways, it's a place where we celebrate the fact that wine is handed on from generation to generation within a family. It's one of the reasons why we love wine. We have these stories of families, but inevitably that means that it is also very much keeping it within a tiny group. So it's not just about sexism or any other thing. It's about this tiny group of privilege, and how do you break through that privilege? I think that's a really tough question to answer.
Yes, indeed. I mean, as an example of what I was thinking, in the winery where I'm working right now, which is a family project, we like to say it's a family project, but at the same time, the family wants to move aside, always be part of it, but really enhance the exposure of the team, which is big enough to make themselves protagonism of the work that is done, you know, and we're working on a way that we're trying not to use a pyramidal structure in which we don't have team leaders or any boss, and it's divided in different group teams. And it's interesting to see like the approach that that is entering into the wine world, and probably this is happening in other companies around the world between different organizations, you know. That's interesting. And at the same time, like living in a wine area like San Salvador de Anoia, we are trying to regularize the work that women do in the vineyards too, because we think that is a very hard job that only men can do it. But there are many aspects that a woman, they say that they would be more capable. I don't know if more, but equally capable of pruning, for example, of green harvesting, of harvesting. They say that our hands, they're tiny or more delicate enough to do this job well. And in the past, like 2 generations ago, women were the ones that actually were working on the vineyards.
I was just about to say, I think traditionally, that green work, like trimming and all of that, it was often, and I think still is often, done by women. And maybe that was the least valorized, whatever the word is in English. It wasn't so, people didn't think of it as being such important work, but actually key work. But often it was the women doing that in the past.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And what kind of changes can be made to support inclusivity? I mean, reaching a wider demographic to encourage diversity in 2023, for example, for you?
I'd love to know from MJ about how to bring in new people into the commercial side, the buying of wine, the being involved.
I think about a lot. A couple of things before I tackle that. I was going to say, you know, here, particularly in California, I think it's shedding a light on what the whole process is, like you said. So there's no California wine industry without Mexican Americans. Okay. So just like I said, women were doing all the work. Like, people don't realize where the wine, I think we need to do a better job of telling the story of the people who harvest the fruit, the Mexican American vineyard managers of high acclaim in Napa Valley and all throughout California who really make it go, because they're the lifeblood of it, right? Like, I mean, you know, it's not white Americans out there, you know, harvesting fruit, you know, unless they're trying to be an intern and they're like, geez, this is hard work, right? Okay. And then also, when I don't struggle, but I often think about, okay, so when NBA players become, you know, start getting into wine, or they make a wine, right? Like one of our club members, Carmelo's making a wine down in Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and you have other players like Kevin Love, and we know Steph Curry and LeBron James, but these people, you know, are making wines, and they're going to winemakers and making wines, and or even if they buy the land, like even, so like some people are buying vineyards. Someone from the Portland Trailblazers bought a vineyard in Oregon. Now that's well and great, but then you have to begin to look at what really is the common denominator in wine. Okay, so it's wealthy men. These are wealthy. They have the wealth to buy this land. So to your point of like so in Europe you have generational where it's just been passed down. Now here the barrier entry is money. So I don't necessarily think just because someone is black or brown and makes a wine out of Napa that it becomes more diverse, because I know how much money it takes. I'm like, what it took was the money.
It goes back to privilege. It's
the privilege, right? Exactly. So it goes to your point. Like so I just don't want people. I don't want people to chase like the red herring. How do we bring more consumers in? That's a good question. I often tell people like, so like if you're younger, I do think though the celebrity of these NBA players will help bring people in, because a lot of people need to see someone who looks like them. Pioneers do not, but most people aren't pioneers, right? Like so some people need to see someone doing what they want to do in order to do it, and that's why we have pioneers. That's why we have people of color have been the first to do this, and women have been the first to do that. But that woman did not need to see a person do it, right? Like there was no roadmap. I saw Paul Boker auction for Acker Merrill in 1998, and I said I could do that. I didn't have to see a black person to do that. I said I can do that. What did he do? He went up there, he talked about the wines, and he tapped the gavel. I can write in a book. I can do that, right? So that's how I look at things. I do think more and more people of note, for better or for worse, we live in a celebrity-driven culture. So I think as you see more celebrities of diverse backgrounds enjoying wine, I think that's what's going to pull people in. And that can be good, because then it doesn't have to be, again, daunting. So many people, I tell people I know enough about wine to be dangerous. I don't want to be an MW. I have respect for MWs. I have respect for Master Sommelier, but I can have a conversation with an MW or Master Sommelier and not feel like an idiot, right? But you don't even have to do that. I tell people, did this wine taste good? Did you enjoy it? What would you eat with this? Make it simple. I'm very simple. I would rather have a cheeseburger and a Saint-Emilion than caviar and Krug, to be honest. I'll take the Krug, but I'm simple. I like what I like, but I think it is, I think, finding the right messaging and the right voices, and also just inviting people in, inviting people in. Like, do we necessarily have to try and be inclusive, or can we be more inviting? I think inviting is better than inclusive. Inclusive,
I could not agree more.
Indicates that you're sitting on the outside. By its nature, it indicates you're on the outside. Yeah. So let's just be more inviting to people.
Totally. I think that the fact remains that the wine industry needs more women, needs more people of color in wine media, wine journalism, winemaking, and more support for the people in our industry who are also, as you said, not recognized, and give some space for everyone to shine, actually.
And there's incredibly simple things, I think, that writers can do, which is, we're writing about so many different topics, and you're on deadline, and you have to call somebody to get a quote, and you always call the same people because they'll pick up, they'll reply. Simple things like just going a little bit further and thinking, who can I get that is from a more diverse voice, and call them up. Those tiny things make such a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Indeed. And I think about also education is very important, and educating in a very simple way, starting from the people that work the land. Usually, as you said, in Napa Valley, most of the people that are working the land are people come from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I realized that many people that here in Spain come to work the land are people that come from Africa or from Romania or from other countries very nearby. And they are doing a very hard work, but I think that they're not paid how this is being corresponded because of the very hard effort that they do. And I don't know if maybe they're not that interested, but we don't help them feel interest of what they are doing, because it's not only working the land, they need to connect with the result of what they are actually making, how this contributes to the final product. So inviting them to see the vineyard, the winery where they're working for, do them a tour, do them a tasting. And I don't know, have a little bit more of connection with the people.
I think the basic level that every single winery should do, and I hope most do, is make sure that whoever's in the vineyard is also tasting the final wine. That seems to me like a no-brainer that every winery should be doing, and maybe they don't.
Yeah, and I will say I had Stoltman Vineyards down in Santa Barbara County does an incredible job of this. They are committed to equity and inclusion. What they even did, they gave their vineyard manager 4 acres to make his own wine, and then he had a squad, and they employ the people full time. And these workers, they had come from, I want to say, Jalisco, like the Jalisco area of Mexico, and you know, they're drinking tequila, and they're like, well, no, you got to taste this wine. So then they started making wine from this land, and they would send it home. So then they're seeing their relatives back home are seeing what they're doing, and now it's a big thing. Now they make several wines, and the workers have equity in the vineyard. They know what the product, know where it's going, and they enjoy the product, right? So I think it has there should, I don't like the word mandate, but when that's sustainable, right? You know, like that, and very few people keep their crew year round. Stoltman keeps your crew round. What if you actually treated people with dignity, respect, paid them well, and made them partners? And like, you know, he was on my podcast, and then I came back and had Ruben on, because that story needs to get out there. Like, I think that's how you do it right? You do it because it's the right thing, right? They were doing this before this was done 20 years ago. This was before these were buzzwords. This was just like what's right? Yeah, like you said, every harvest worker should be invited to the harvest celebration and acknowledged and put up on a stage or whatever, and said, these are the people who brought this wine to you. You know what I mean? And really get them to see what they're bringing forth in the world and how it affects people.
100%. Yes. And MJ, you're based in New York City, or very nearby New York City. Do you see lack of diversity in the industry there?
See, I would say no, simply because, like, the black wine guy is kind of, it's a joke. I was like the only black guy in 1997 when I was in, but now, yeah, I see a lot more people of color. Like I joke sometimes, I'm like, wow. But again, someone said, like, someone a comment about creating inclusive environments. That becomes tough, because the reality is, I'll give you an example. Going to university in the United States, right? Most ethnic groups sit together. If they're at a predominantly white university, they sit together, right? I don't know how you get people to feel open to do things. I'm fortunate. I'm someone who's always like, if I was curious, I will just go over and ask. A lot of people aren't like that. So I don't know how we get into people's heads. It's okay to ask. I don't really know. That's a good question, but I don't know how really corporations can foster that environment, because for me, it has to be really organic. If it's not organic, it's not going to work, because then you get pushback from people in the organization like, why do we have to do this? So I don't know how we create these organic environments where this is happening. Because perception is in the mind of the perceiver, right? So 2 people can see a situation, one can see it as inviting, one can see it as hostile. And I don't know how we bridge that gap, you know, and I've seen that just in my educational background, being a lawyer. There's 2 sides to every case, right? Why did someone think this person was guilty, this person not guilty, given the same set of facts? And that's something we're also dealing with wine. I think wine has to figure out, I'll be honest, first of all, I think wine will be fine. It's been around forever. It's not going to go where. But if it wants to be more, it has to figure out how to take the pretension or the perception of pretension out of it. And that's how I think you make it more inclusive. It's the perception of pretension. I've told people I've never felt uncomfortable. Even when I was that only black person, I've never felt uncomfortable at a wine tasting or an event. But that's me. There's other people who would feel it was hostile. So I don't know how to reconcile that for other people. But no, I think the scene has definitely changed in New York. But again, it's also people, we also live in a time where we live in a fast-paced world. People get micro-focused on what they're into, right? So like they might not be into wine. Like, and once that algorithm knows what you like, it just keeps taking you down that rabbit hole. So that's also something that's also has to be overcome in today's world.
Yes, yes, 100%. I mean, I think that thinking also into, I don't know, some consumers have gone to other brands, other kind of beverages, because they feel that the wine industry has been tone deaf and a little bit inconsiderate sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, objectively too. I mean, you know, the expression here, Jane, is how do you make a small fortune in the wine business? You start out with a large one, right? So it's not a product that people necessarily who have it necessarily need to sell, right? They're doing it. They do, like, there's other reasons for doing it. So, you know, Budweiser is there to sell beer. That's what they're there to do. You know, they're not to provide. I mean, there is a Budweiser experience with nachos and watch football, but like, they're not creating this lifestyle. They just want to crank out units.
Yeah. Whereas wine is very much built on selling a lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is very true. Yeah. And so how do you get that lifestyle to appeal?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
And I've seen that, like I said, working with kids in the inner city, I've seen kids afraid to go on certain campuses, not afraid, we take them on, but like, it's intimidating to be on a college campus and to see ivy growing on a building or something like that. And I think we have to do a better job. Well, we just have to do a better job in the world. As I said at the outset, like, these are world problems. These aren't just wine problems.
Yes, indeed. And
it goes back to that really simple thing that you said, MJ. Just try to be more human in terms of how you approach people, everybody. It solves a lot of problems if you do that. Yeah,
I agree, Jane.
Exactly, in any industry. And Jane, can you talk a little bit about your Mentor Week program? Because since we're talking about inclusivity, what exactly is it, and how did you and your team handle the selection process? What are the main goals of it?
So that's an example of how I'm just trying in a tiny way to move forward the conversation in this area of Bordeaux, which is really has got so far to go to really, I think, treat people better in terms of how they allow access. So about a year ago, pretty much exactly a year ago, I left Decanter, where I'd been for a long time, which was, quite a sweet gig to be Bordeaux correspondent of Decanter, but I felt like it was the time for me to go and do something else. But when I set up my own site, I was really clear to myself from the beginning I wanted to do it differently. I felt like I've worked in wine for about 20 years. I've got to the point where I have the ability to change things a little bit, and I really just didn't want to set up another critic site with just me talking to everyone about how wonderful I am. That was really not what I wanted to do at all. So I was trying to think of ways to do something different. And the first thing that really struck me was, we think of Bordeaux as being this kind of closed, static environment. And I really wanted to break a little bit that image. And really importantly, this is not about creating people who like Bordeaux. This is about seeing what Bordeaux can give to other people, which I don't think it has been good enough at giving out. So I created this idea called the Mentor Week. I asked a friend of mine who's called Chinedu Rita Rosa, who's this wonderful Nigerian kind of exporter of wine. She sells wine from Bordeaux over to really across the African continent, but basically concentrate on Nigeria. Anyway, I asked her if she would do this with me, and she was thrilled to. And so we basically set up a week where people can come free of charge. So I give my time for free, so does Chinedu. We've got chateaus to sponsor. You guys, Club du Vin, have been wonderful and have also sponsored one of the flights coming over. IWSC Foundation in the UK, the Gerard Bassett Foundation, all these people that are really trying to make a difference. So I just asked them, this is just me, no background in doing this whatsoever, but I just wanted to do it. So I just thought, right, I'm going to. Anyway, so then we've got these guys coming over. They spend a day harvesting, they spend a day with negociants, understanding the business of Bordeaux. They're spending a day with me tasting older wines, because one of the things with Bordeaux is it's hard and expensive to taste older vintages. So I'm going to get them to do that. We're going to have a day of organic biodynamic. They're going to go out into some wetlands with their boots on and kind of get to understand what's happening in the organic biodynamic scene. And then we'll have a day really of personal mentoring, fixing up whatever they do. And I told people it was happening. It was a slow start. I gave them a month to apply. And what was super interesting in terms of what we're talking about is, at first, most of the applications came from people who were working in wine pretty much at quite a high level, who were maybe at the existing wine selling, I can't think what the word is, wine traders in different countries. And it would have been wonderful for them to come, but that wasn't what we wanted. We wanted people who wouldn't otherwise have the access, who wouldn't believe that they were able to get to Bordeaux. And so little by little, that message came out, and we did a couple of videos on social media, etc. And I got existing subscribers to nominate people, so they could then understand and reach out wider. Anyway, in the end, we got applications from over 100 countries. And what we've got now is we've got people coming from, 2 people from South Africa, somebody from Nigeria, somebody from Puerto Rico. We've got a really sweet 18-year-old girl from Switzerland as well. So I mean, and there were going to be 6. We've made it 7 because it was just impossible to choose. I got one guy who we didn't accept in the end just because we had to make a selection. But one guy was an ex-detective in Florida who was changing careers and wanted to come to Bordeaux. We just had amazing, amazing applications. And I'm super excited, really. And it feels to me like it's the most important thing I have done in my career. I'm really excited about it.
Wow. I really feel that the objective of it is, it's just so natural, so pure. And so, as you said,
truly, what I know about Bordeaux is people assume you know more than you do if you can bullshit about Bordeaux. If you can say a couple of things about Bordeaux, it's a shortcut into being taken seriously by wine. And that is the truth. And I really, really feel that we should allow younger people, or it doesn't matter what age they are, but people who are starting out on their wine journey, this is your keys to understand some things, and leave at the end of that week with people taking you more seriously and giving you more options for your career.
That's fantastic. That's very generous of you, seriously. Indeed. And
I definitely don't think of it as being generous, honestly. I really think of it as being just as exciting for me as it will be for them. And that's the truth. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And what about you, MJ? So first, congratulations. I really love the objective of it, and I'm very excited to see how they enjoy. So seriously, thank you for doing this. I mean, I thank you. However, I'm not going to experience it, but thank you for
vicariously, because you guys are sponsoring one of our scholars.
Yeah, and because I think that you're doing a very good thing.
In fact, I think you guys are bringing Fernando over from Puerto Rico, who sounds amazing. I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And what about you, MJ? How do you think your podcast and actually is inclusive for people? How do you choose the people you wanna talk to, and how these talks or conversations go through? I mean, what do you have in your mind when you think about them?
It's very simple. I am simple because simplicity works. You can look out through it. Simple works. I started podcast. I was like, who would I want to drink a bottle of wine with? Literally, I was like, who would be cool to drink a bottle of wine with? And then I said to my wife, I was like, you know what? And if somebody wouldn't want to drink a bottle of wine with me, that's okay, because they're obviously not that cool because they don't want to drink a bottle of wine with me. And these are conversations, and it really is like, man, I think that person's interesting. And it's not, my podcast is not about wine specifically. It's about life. It's about people's journey. It's about getting the stories that connect us, right? So I had a guest. I can't tell how many times I've heard, wow, that's a good question. I've never told this story before. Mm-hmm. But I had a guest whose father was shot in a robbery attempt at Lowry's Steakhouse in LA in like 1969. And his leg was going to be amputated, right? So say you're a kid from the inner city and your cousin's been shot and killed, and here's this guy who owns a winery and he got shot. Like, you understand violence affects everybody, right? It's things that you wouldn't think. My podcast points out these nuggets. I have a good friend who does not drink wine. He doesn't drink wine. He's not even into food. He doesn't even eat cheeseburgers. He eats hamburgers. He's that plain. But he's listening. I've gotten text from him. He's like, I'm loving this podcast. He's like, this woman, I majored in marketing in college. She majored in marketing. I was in the marching band in high school. She was in the marching band. She worked in radio. I was a DJ for years. So I have a podcast where people who don't even drink wine enjoy the stories. That's what's important. That's how you make it more inclusive. You tell stories that people can relate to, And then I've had masters of wines on, and one of the biggest compliments, my favorite book about wine, we have all these books, Wine for Dummies. Shout out to Mary Ewing Bellingham. That's my Bible, Wine for Dummies. And she said, I know you know enough about wine to have a conversation with me. And here's a master of wine. And what she said is, I could never know everything about wine because it changes every vintage, right? So Jane makes a very good point. I tell people all the time, just say it with authority. If you say it with authority, you'll start to get respect. But I think it's in one of the Psalm movies, one of the professors that David said, if there was ever a business with more bullshit in it, it's the wine business. It's so subjective. It's so opinionated. And if we can laugh about that and then talk about like growing up and what happened, and I did this and you did that, I played the flute. That's how I'm making wine more inclusive. I literally have people who don't drink wine to young Psalms of color who say I support them, to 7-year-old white dudes who listen to my podcast. I think that's great. I think that's inclusive. But people are choosing to come in. So they're choosing to come in. And the joke of the black wine guy experience, it's just, it really could be the guy who drinks wines of this caliber experience. I just happen to be black, right? Like I'm very fortunate that I get to play with this club, right? And then I have an experience inside of it. But anyone can have that experience if they're willing to, if we could be more inviting, and if they're willing to knock on the, I had a guest, I said, listen, if the door is closed, you turn the knob and open it. You don't go, damn, the door is closed. And if you got to kick it in, you kick it in.
Yes, and we need diversity. I mean, we're facing
Valentina, no one likes to drink the same wine. I mean, that's the dreaded question. You're stuck on a desert island. What wine will you drink, right? Shot enough to pop, but I wouldn't want to. But look at all the diversity of wine. Why wouldn't we want to discuss that with people who actually think differently than we do about certain wines? That's how we grow. We share ideas. We exchange things.
Yeah, you're right. And is there an industry which celebrates different countries and different backgrounds of grapes and diversity than wine? There really isn't. So it does seem insane that it's taken this long to even have these conversations, really.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I mean, we're facing a huge climate crisis and we need to start thinking differently and innovate. So me here living in Southern Illinois, being able to talk with friends, ask any doubts. Hey, I need how does it say? A machine that helps me control the temperature in the winery. Where can I buy it? Okay, you should buy this and this. Let me help you.
Valentina, you're making such a brilliant point there on a wider scale, and we can kind of bring this out to the idea of learning from each other. For so many decades and really centuries, the old world has been the one that's been teaching in the new world, and I'm saying both of those things with heavy sarcasm, but that has been how it's been seen. Oh, okay, we learn from France, we learn from Italy, we learn from Spain, and they teach these new world regions in California or in Argentina, etc. And the really fascinating thing, I think, about the change in climate over the last decade is all of a sudden people in France realize there is so much for them to learn from Argentina, from California, from these areas which have dealt with a changing climate and not enough water and all the rest of it for a very long time. And you just hope that can just spread out a little bit more and realize that this is a genuine learning exchange, and it isn't about what these traditional regions have got to be up on a mountain and tell everybody else. I really think that that's such a good point. So thank you for bringing that up, Valentina.
Yeah, and the idea of between the past generations, it was everyone was like very close with their ideas, and they didn't want to share what they did because they were afraid of being copied. And nowadays, the more we share, the more we talk, the more we grow, and the more we succeed. And also the idea of, in the old word, maybe thinking about the old word, I know this is not that correct to say nowadays, but being able in Spain to drink Argentinian wines, to drink USA wines, to drink wines from Australia, the same in France, the same in Italy, the same in Germany. It's not, we're just, I mean, this is something so basic that French people, 90% of the wine that they drink is French. So I think that it's interesting to see in which way in a sustainable way we can introduce habits and cultures and styles of wine from all of these countries, in countries that have so much history. They've learned so much around the time that they've been producing wine, and opening themselves to enjoying wine from outside and being this accessible. Because nowadays, with the importation and exportation and trading around the world, we have some access, but it's little. I mean, I go to Spain and go in Barcelona to drink a glass of wine, and probably I'm going to drink a wine that's produced nearby. That's also fantastic because of proximity. But I think that it's interesting seeing it on the inclusivity side, that it would be nice to be able to drink wines from all around the world, in the old world. Well, when you go to Argentina, or I don't know, to Brazil, you're always drinking wines from France, from Italy, and they're not probably drinking, they have little amount of their own. You know what I mean? That's also something that just popped up into my head.
Yep, you're right. There's diversity in all kinds of levels.
Yeah, yes, and this could be speaking about this from in any aspect. So, but I think that we've been around like for 45 minutes, and I would really like to thank you guys for being here. It's been a fantastic conversation, kind of discussion that is very enriching. And yeah, reminding all of us how important inclusivity, diversity, and generosity it is. This is.
I would just like to add that for you guys, in terms of, we said it right at the beginning, but I think in terms of how people understand Club Divan and what it does, it is not about thinking of what you're providing as an investment vehicle. So when you're buying your tokens and stuff, it isn't about that, or it shouldn't be about that. It should be about a way to access like-minded people who are talking about stuff that you like. And you know, that it's what I really hope, and for me, that's why I was interested in getting involved with what you guys are doing. It's a way to reach different people who are talking about wine in a different way, and that, I think that's really important. But making that point that it isn't about crypto and investment, it's about access to people who share the same interests.
Yes, 100%. And I think that the three of us being founder members, I think that we've all came together because it's not if someone is more smart in this or in the other. We are people that I think that we want to join and have a glass of wine, as you said, MJ. We're going to spend a good time. That's something that I think is one of the objectives of Club Divan. And David always say, I think the group that we created is people that we want to hang out, we want to have a nice glass of wine and enjoy ourselves as a community. That's the most important thing of Club Divan, community.
Cool. Okay, yes. Well, wonderful. Well, super great. Well, let's hope we do that in person, MJ. I'm really looking forward.
I can't wait, Jane. It's happening. Can't wait to have you on the podcast. Sit down and have a glass of wine.
That would be wonderful. Okay, great. Well, have a wonderful evening. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon, MJ.
Take care. You too. Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you both for being here. Have a good afternoon and evening. Bye.